and Ralph Stanfield, and 26 co-accused, including Malusi Boy, former City of Cape Town MMC for Human Settlements. While all three cases are being heard separately, what they have in common is a battle for power and turf.
Ralph Stanfield and Nicole Johnson looked like any other wealthy couple living in luxury. Their social media was filled with fancy cars, designer clothes, and vacations that looked straight out of a celebrity magazine. But beneath the flash and glamour, police say, they were running something far more dangerous. Authorities believed they controlled a deadly network that touched every corner of Cape Town's criminal world. This wasn't just a couple with secrets. This was a couple allegedly controlling chaos from the shadows. Cape Town is a city known for beauty and bloodshed. It's a place where million-dollar homes overlook neighborhoods torn apart by gang violence. In the streets of the Cape Flats, one name rules in silence: the 28's Gang. This gang has roots that run deep, going back decades, and its grip on the underworld is as strong as ever. But something changed when a new power rose through the ranks. That power was the Firm, a secretive group suspected of operating behind closed doors, influencing gangs, corrupting officials, and even controlling parts of law enforcement. Ralph Stanfield wasn't just a gangster. He was a symbol of control. He had connections to the 28 SS, but reports suggest he wanted more than just gang respect. He wanted the entire table. By creating the Firm, he allegedly built an empire that could pull strings across Cape Town, from drugs and to dirty police officers and government officials. But he didn't do it alone. Nicole Johnson, his wife, wasn't just standing by his side. She was deeply involved, and authorities say she helped manage the operation like a business, keeping things smooth and quiet while spilled in the streets. Their story isn't just about crime. It's about power, fear, and silence. Imagine a couple who can throw lavish parties while arranging hits in the background. Imagine having enough influence to walk free after being arrested time and time again. That's what made people fear them. Their names were whispered in townships and boardrooms alike. Some believed they were untouchable, and for years, it seemed that way. But whispers turned to evidence. Police began tracking their movements, listening to phone calls, watching every step. What they found was bigger than expected. There were stories of being stolen from police stations and sold back to gangsters. There were reports of people disappearing after crossing the wrong line. Stanfield and Johnson weren't just leading a gang. They were allegedly managing a machine that kept Cape Town bleeding. This wasn't a normal investigation. It became one of the largest and most complex in South African history. Task forces were formed, cases reopened. Evidence surfaced that pointed not only to gang activity, but to a system of corruption so deep, it shook the public's trust. Still, despite mounting pressure, the couple lived comfortably, moving between mansions and driving luxury cars while the city crumbled around them. They smiled in photos. They posted videos, all while bodies dropped in the background. Nicole Johnson played a key role in building their empire. She wasn't just someone in the background. She was in meetings, managing people, and making sure money flowed and messages got delivered. She dressed like a celebrity but moved like a CEO, and that made her dangerous. People who knew her say she had a sharp mind and a cold heart, perfect traits for someone running a criminal empire. When combined with Stanfield's street connections and ruthless ambition, they became a force no one wanted to challenge. Now, the truth is being pulled from the shadows. The couple is under investigation, their assets are being traced, and their past is being dug up piece by piece. But even now, some believe they're still pulling strings from the dark. Some fear that the Firm never really disappeared, it just went silent, waiting. What's clear is this: Ralph Stanfield and Nicole Johnson weren't just a couple living large. They were, and maybe still are, the couple South Africa has ever seen. Their story is just beginning to unravel. Ralph Stanfield's rise began on the streets of Cape Town, where his name first echoed through the corridors of Pollsmoor Prison. He was a key figure in the 28's Gang, one of South Africa's most violent prison gangs. Known for brutal tactics, he quickly gained respect and fear among other inmates and local gangsters. Outside prison, Stanfield carried his influence with him, turning street power into real control. His methods were violent, his network tight, and his ambition clear from the start. Nicole Johnson was not born into gang life, but she became a central player. Her early life was quiet, known mostly for her beauty and involvement in salons and small businesses. But when she met Stanfield, everything changed. She stepped into his world and never looked back. Soon, her name was linked to criminal operations just as dangerous as her partners. Together, they became stronger, blending brains, brutality, and business. Their power grew fast, and their enemies feared what the two could do together. They didn't just run the streets, they infiltrated the system. Johnson, using her business front, opened doors in real estate and construction. These industries became tools for hiding money and expanding their control. By 2015, Stanfield's grip on Cape Town had stretched beyond gangs and drugs. He was seen at luxury parties, owned expensive cars, and held quiet meetings with powerful people. Nicole managed contracts and paperwork that masked their deeper operations. One of her companies, Glomix Housebrokers, began landing high-value building deals. These deals, tied to government projects, showed how far their influence had reached. But behind the papers and buildings, threats and violence remained their tools. Stanfield's men would show up uninvited at municipal offices, demanding contracts or else. They reportedly made phone calls with promises of pain to officials who pushed back. Fear worked better than money in many of these negotiations. And so, they got what they wanted, quickly and without delay. It wasn't just about money, they were building something larger. People started whispering about the Firm, a name used to describe their network. It wasn't a street gang, it was something more organized, more and harder to trace. The Firm was a web of people from all corners of the city. There were musclemen, lawyers, ex-cops, and even business executives. Every part of the group had a role. Some moved money, others silenced witnesses. Nicole kept records and played the role of businesswoman, but behind her polished image was a cold strategist. Stanfield, meanwhile, maintained control through fear. He never stayed in one place for too long. When trouble got close, he used connections to delay court cases and erase files. His enemies often disappeared or backed down. Few dared to speak openly about him. The were another part of their empire. Stanfield was accused of helping dozens of people get illegal firearm licenses. This wasn't street-level smuggling. It was an organized effort that used police officers and forged documents. Ended up in the hands of known gang members with real permits. Johnson's job was to keep the business side clean. She handled the banks, the contracts, and the shell companies. Even when flagged by authorities, she stayed ahead, moving assets and switching names. Her charm worked well during inspections and audits. Few suspected she was managing one of the city's most dangerous networks. Their homes were filled with luxury, marble floors, gold fittings, private security. Yet, inside those walls, police later found unlicensed guns, illegal IDs, and surveillance equipment. Every move was tracked. Every rival was watched. They were not just living well, they were running Cape Town from the shadows. People close to them often went silent. Some were too scared to talk. Others were loyal for life. Those who betrayed them rarely got a second chance. And soon, even honest officials started keeping quiet. The fear was real, and it spread through every layer of Cape Town's underworld. Stanfield and Johnson weren't just feared because of what they did, but because no one knew how deep their reach went. Their names were mentioned in courtrooms, police briefings, and whispered phone calls. Everyone knew who ran things, but no one dared to say it out loud. The South African Police Service, SAPS, started Project MP with a simple but important goal: to lower the rate of violent crime by getting illegal off the streets. Police were told to take weapons taken during investigations out of service and destroy them. The goal of the initiative was to cut off a main source of weapons for gangs, notorious criminals like Ralph Stanfield, and organized crime. But what at first looked like progress in the fight against crime quickly turned into a nightmare. Instead of getting rid of the weapons, Colonel Christian Prinsloo is said to have used his position to get them into the hands of criminals, including those who were part of Stanfield's network. Colonel Christian Prinsloo, a senior officer in the SAPS, was in charge of the decommissioning process. Because he had been a police officer for a long time, they trusted him. For Prinsloo, though, there was a much darker side to his job. He is said to have stolen thousands of seized weapons and turned them into tools of chaos, instead of following the rules and making sure they were destroyed. These were sold on the black market, which increased crime in Cape Town and other places. They did not go away. The police officer, whose job it was to protect the public, had instead become a key player in an illegal plot that put the system he was sworn to protect at risk. A shockingly large number of weapons were taken away by Prinsloo and other police officers. More than 2,000 weapons were bought by gang leaders, some of whom were connected to Stanfield. These were high-end, military-grade weapons that could do a lot of damage to a lot of things at once. There is no doubt that gangs having more than ever before caused the rise in violence in Cape Town. Shootouts in Cape Town streets became more common and violent, especially in the Cape Flats, scaring people all the time. The city's gang turf wars were already very dangerous, but with more weapons, they got even worse. This strange use of weapons was terrible for Cape Town. There was already a lot of gang violence in places like the Cape Flats, but terrible crimes went up a lot. With their powerful weapons, criminals terrorized the streets and stole things, including people. Normal people who were caught in the middle of these bloody gang fights were clearly, the constant violence had a human cost that included the of innocent people and the destruction of many families. People who used to feel safe in their homes now live in fear every day because they know the weapons used against them came from a broken system. It wasn't a secret for long. As the illegal weapons moved through gang networks, the SAPs learned that some of their own officers were being dishonest. By looking at Prinsloo and his allies, the level of betrayal was made clear. Police arrested Prinsloo and charged him with theft, racketeering, corruption, and other crimes. He was arrested, but that was just the tip of the iceberg. It became very clear that this wasn't a one-time thing. Instead, there was a much larger system of dishonest police officers who were diverting. It went very deep into SAPs and found systemic problems and corruption within the force. The affair had a lot of effects. Prinsloo's actions broke the public's trust, as well as the trust of his coworkers. His illegal activities directly caused the violence in Cape Town, which made it harder for the police to handle. As more hit the streets and gang violence rose, the already tense relationship between police and communities got even worse. The scandal also raised questions about the corruption in the SAPs as a whole and how far these illegal activities have spread. This scandal showed that the police department as a whole is broken, letting bad guys like Ralph Stanfield get away with crimes. It wasn't just the fault of one officer. The effects on the ongoing research on Stanfield and Nicole Johnson were big. As more dishonest officials were found, it became clear that Stanfield's activities may be bigger than anyone thought at first. Giving weapons to gangs was one way that the couple's criminal business was protected by a web of corruption. The firm's investigation was getting more complicated and risky with each new piece of information. People involved in the scandal were facing harsh legal consequences, but the public already didn't trust them. When Prinsloo was arrested, it was just the beginning. As more officials were linked to the theft, the scandal forced a national look at how corrupt police are. Gang violence kept killing people in Cape Town, and the effects were felt every day. The project that was supposed to lower the number of on the streets instead caused an even worse wave of violence. This showed how widespread corruption was and how hard it would be to fix the damage done by people who were supposed to protect society. In Cape Town, the IPIP Lifestyle Lounge went from being a stylish place to hang out to a symbol of Ralph Stanfield and Nicole Johnson's growing influence in both the business world and the criminal underworld. IPIP was designed to be a cool lounge for the city's elite. It got a lot of attention right away for its fancy decor and famous guests. Under its shiny exterior, the lounge was said to be a front for laundering money, a place where illegal activity and dirty money could go without being seen. There were rumors that the couple used the business to hide the money they made from their illegal activities. Reports came out that the lounge was involved in several legal disputes with business partners, which added to the couple's bad reputation. Those who crossed them were scared, threatened, and even hurt physically. With the growth of the business, the number of competitors and enemies who either sued the couple or were hurt by what they said they did also grew. A number of business partners said they were forced and scared out of ownership roles. Many people said Stanfield and Johnson even used their criminal network to scare people who dared to question their control over the lounge. A lot of lawsuits were filed against the couple, but they always seemed to get away with it, giving the impression that they were acting without any consequences. As the authorities became less sure about the bad things going on behind the scenes, the lounge became the center of the investigation into their criminal empire. Obviously not innocent, the company that seemed honest was hiding something much worse. Still, the IPIP Lifestyle Lounge was only one part of the couple's large business network. Johnson allegedly ran a number of other businesses that seemed legal, but were actually connected to their illegal activities. They were always one step ahead of the law. From petrol stations to salons, these businesses were great places to hide money laundering activities. It is said that the couple used these businesses to launder money, turning what were supposed to be normal businesses into ways to make illegal money. They seemed to be trying to hide their activities by starting new businesses, all the while staying out of sight and avoiding police investigations. People didn't like how quickly their business portfolio grew, but their connections and power seemed to keep them from being questioned. But finally, the government started to pay attention to their huge, what seemed to be a successful business empire. The Cape Town municipal government took action and put some of Johnson's businesses on a blacklist. These included salons and petrol stations. The government was aware of the trend and knew that many of these companies were likely being used to hide illegal activities like laundering money. Even with all of these efforts, it was hard to piece together the truth. Authorities had a hard time telling the difference between legal and illegal activities because many of Johnson's businesses were connected to other local businesses. Both the local and national governments worked hard to close these fronts because the couple's influence seemed to be felt in every part of Cape Town's business world. On the other hand, the media didn't stop. When the operations and financial records of Stanfield and Johnson's companies were looked at more closely, differences were found. The more the media looked into it, the less real the couple seemed to be. Reporters found connections between what their company did and the violent gangs that were said to be under control. The bad parts of their business activities are shown by the media, which casts a long shadow over their public image as moral business owners. Even though they tried to act like they were married, the evidence against them was too strong to ignore. People used to think of these businesses as successful and entrepreneurial, but now they see them as just a front for a huge criminal network. Even though there was more evidence and more attention from the public, the couple seemed to be able to get away with it. They were great at hiding their identities, so they could easily move between the worlds of organized crime and honest business. The investigation went deeper, though, and it became clear that their empire wasn't just based on business sense. It was also based on fear, manipulation, and criminal ties that went far beyond Cape Town. Stanfield and Johnson worked hard to make a world, but as soon as people found out who they really were, it began to fall apart. People lost faith in their businesses, and it became clear how big their operations really were and how deeply their illegal activities were woven into Cape Town's underbelly. The couple that was thought to be the masterminds had public enemies because they were fighting to protect everything they had made. They weren't just business owners who were being sued. It was the worst month for Ralph Stanfield and Nicole Johnson's criminal empire in September 2023. The couple was arrested after months of investigations into how they were said to have a hand in the bad side of Cape Town. Many people were shocked when they were arrested, especially those who thought their power could not be harmed. They were charged with murder, attempted murder, fraud, and crimes, among other serious and general crimes. This was the start of a long public legal battle that questioned the power of Cape Town's gangs and corrupt networks and brought attention to their illegal activities. Many people didn't think they would really be held responsible for what they did, but the fact that they were arrested gave people hope for justice. The couple's court appearances quickly became a show that got a lot of attention from the public and the media. The defense teams for Stanfield and Johnson fought hard to get them released on bail, but the state said no because they were a flight risk and could have gotten in the way of ongoing investigations. During one of the hearings, the court judged Johnson's credibility by pointing out differences between what she said and how she handled her money. The judge asked if she could be trusted not to sway witnesses because she was linked to organized crime. As the case went on, it became clear that both of them would have a very difficult time defending themselves in court, since they were both facing more and more charges from the government and other victims. The case went beyond the couple's story to show how Cape Town deals with corruption and gang violence. The investigation grew as it went on, adding more suspects and charges. Each new piece of information made the case more difficult. The government began to connect the couple to a large criminal group, which showed how big the firm really was. The investigation found ties to more gang leaders, illegal businesses, and dishonest government officials who helped hide the couple's activities. Police had to do more than just punish Stanfield and Johnson. They also had to destroy the criminal network they were in charge of. Because the case was so big, it was hard to keep track of everything. Local police, federal investigators, and police from other countries had to work together very carefully. It was very clear that this would not be a normal trial because of how complicated the case was. The stakes had never been higher for both the people of Cape Town and the police. As the case was still being worked on, no one knew what would happen to the couple and their criminal empire. Although trial dates have been decided as of yet, many feel the road ahead will be long and difficult. Legal analysts believe the defense will attempt to postpone activities using strategies meant to slow down the trial and guarantee a more positive result. A lot of people are still interested because they want to know if the justice system can finally catch a couple who seemed untouchable for a long time. The trial of Stanfield and Johnson is more than just a legal matter for Cape Town. It is part of the city's ongoing fight against organized crime, corruption, and the power of the criminal elite. The case tests both the criminal justice system and the city's determination to destroy the underground, which has been very strong for decades. The legal process takes a long time, and questions about the case's wider effects are still being raised. If Stanfield and Johnson are found guilty, they could get harsh punishments, but their effect on Cape Town's criminal scene probably won't end when they are locked up. Experts warn that other criminal groups could come back to fill the power void even after they're gone. As the investigation into their empire goes on, it may turn up even more corruption in the Cape Town police and government, which will show how close they are to organized crime. Others wonder if this is just the start of a much bigger battle in Cape Town's fight against crime and corruption. Some say it's the end of the rule of a notorious criminal couple. The search for justice is still going on. People in Cape Town are still waiting for the trial to end so they can get the justice they've been waiting for. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next one.